A warning for our viewers, the following program contains themes of domestic violence and sexual assault. Viewer discretion is advised. If you or someone you know needs help, resources are available by calling 1-855-687-1868. This week marks Prevention of Violence Against Women Week in British Columbia, an annual event every third week of April, commemorated by many local organizations working day in and day out to support women who've experienced abuse. That can take place at home, but also at work and even in schools, from physical and emotional to financial and sexual abuse. Earlier this year, gender-based violence was declared an epidemic by the province. Statistics Canada data shows that nearly a third of BC women have experienced physical or sexual violence. In 2023, there were almost 4,000 reported sexual assaults across the province, the most taking place in Vancouver. The early days of COVID-19 also saw an increase in gender-based violence, something the UN has called a shadow pandemic. You'll remember the story of 33-year-old Vanessa Terry, found dead at a home on Seabird Island First Nation near Agassiz last April. Her partner has been charged with second-degree murder. Or the story of Tatiana Stefanski, whose ex-husband was also charged with second-degree murder in May last year, weeks after Stefanski was reported to have been taken from her home in the North Okanagan. Her body was found in a rural area the next day. You might also remember the story of Stephanie Forster in 2022, the Coquitlam woman shot and killed by whom investigators believe was her ex-husband, who died 2 days later of self-inflicted injuries. Court records show that at the time of her death, she had a restraining order against him. That same month, December 2022, Harpreet Kaur Gill died of stab wounds. The Surrey woman's husband was charged with second-degree murder and has been sentenced to life in prison. These are just a handful of the hundreds of women killed by someone known to them, some by people they loved. Every year, Indigenous women and girls who've been killed or who've gone missing are commemorated. The province says Indigenous women, women of color, women who have disabilities, as well as people who identify as 2S LGBTQIA+, are especially targeted with violence.
I worked 35 years down here. I had a daughter who was stabbed multiple times in the stomach. And the guy bit off her ear and gave her a hairline fracture, and she was on life support. The guy didn't get charged.
Now, multiple levels of government have announced a few measures to address the crisis. In March, the Fed said they'd invest $37 million over 4 years to help survivors with housing rent. The BC government said they'd match that amount. But advocates say that's not enough, and until every woman is safe from violence, more needs to be done. The gaps are many, but for victims of abuse, sometimes the next step forward is all that matters. What can be done? Where to go for help? In this special, we get a better look at one answer to that question: shelters. Coming up, we hear from the women behind Canada's longest-standing rape crisis center about the life-saving services accessible to survivors today. But first, a survivor shares her experience and why she's now speaking up and speaking out for others like her. That's next. Fleeing violence is not so simple, as survivors and their advocates point out. For many, various obstacles stand in the way of seeking safety, from fearing retaliation from their partner to figuring out where to live. For one survivor, it could be said that surmounting those obstacles is nothing short of a miracle. Here she shares her harrowing experience and how she's turning her hardship into hope for other women.
My full name is Rumana Manzoor, and I'm a lawyer at the Department of Justice. I got married when I was 22 in 2000, and since then I was very young, and my marriage was never a very happy one. Since day one, the abuse started. I was at the University of Dhaka pursuing my undergraduate degree in international relations. But then that was my first, being a rebel was basically thinking inside me that I have to create my own identity, and the only weapon I had was my education. My ex-husband would always be come up with some different forms of abuse. And like I didn't have any freedom. He exactly knew my class schedule when I was a student. It was a huge marriage and many people showed up. And when the event was happening, they arrived very, very late. Then he said that, oh, what's the problem? And I asked him that because why were you so late? And everyone, not only the groom, comes with his side of the family, right? So that's why I asked him, and then his response to my question was a slap. So that's for the first time I realized that this is not the person who I thought he was. Since that, the first day, I guess he started treating me as a property, like a possession or something. Like he felt that he had like full control and some sort of right over me. He basically isolated me from my whole family and friends group, where I became a different person. I came to Vancouver for the first time in 2010, August 2010. Started my master's program in September 2010. And I finished all my coursework by April 2011. I arrived in Bangladesh in May, and I was like, you know what, let's get my divorce finalized. I did not know at that time that if you have decided to divorce your partner, the last person you should tell it to is the partner. He came to my parents' place when none of my parents were at home. My daughter and me, we were just basically in my parents' bedroom. She was coloring. That's when he snuck into the room and completely took me by surprise. He turned the volume of the TV up, and yeah, that rage happened. He strangled me, basically strangled me, and when I couldn't breathe anymore, I could see his face coming towards my face, and he bit off the tip of my nose. And I started bleeding. I could see that I was getting weaker. And that's when he put both his thumbs deep into my eyes. And I think I don't remember in how many minutes, but I remember that at one point I couldn't see anything anymore. And then he didn't stop. He pulled my hair, dragged me off the bed, and kept hitting me like it with different kinds of objects. And I think I remember I was sleeping in the pool of blood, in the pool of my own blood. I was taken directly to the hospital, and as I said, he bit off the tip of my nose, so there was a huge hole, and then my lip was open, so they had to stitch me at the intensive care unit. My eyelids were shut. They tried to open it, and I was in severe pain. I was not being able to open my eyelids. When we were staying at the hospital, we were constantly receiving threat calls that if I don't withdraw charges, then they will kill my parents and then kidnap my daughter and kill me too. That's when the process to come to Canada started, and I was still with the hope that I will get my sight back. I went through 4 eye surgeries. Nothing could be done to bring my sight back. I guess I gained strength from my friends, and my daughter was the only one who was adapting to it faster. She told everyone that my mom sees now with her hands and feet. At one point I realized, enough is enough. I'm not gonna let an evil spirit win over my human spirit. Now I'm the only blind lawyer in litigation in Vancouver. My message to any woman who's experiencing violence: love yourself, but not in a selfish way. You have to think about others, you have to think about your community, and you all are beautiful people who possess the capacity to become a very important part of the community who can contribute a lot.
The high rate of gender-based violence has been called by the BC government an epidemic. Now, many things need to be done to address that, but for survivors, there is one place they can go as a first step. The Vancouver Rape Relief and Women's Shelter is one of the oldest in Canada, offering not just a roof above one's head, but also counseling and support. Let's hear from some of the women ready to welcome whoever comes through their doors.
I've worked at Vancouver Rape Relief since February 2018. I had initially been introduced to Rape Relief through their annual Montreal Massacre Memorial. My personal experience, I had 2 back-to-back violent relationships before I came out as a lesbian, and I think I was really looking to do something that was more related to supporting other women.
I've been at Rape Relief for 4.5 years now. I happened to be out walking during the pandemic when we were allowed to walk, and I happened to see a flyer in a car that said women volunteers needed. And at that time I was in a relationship with a man who had controlling behaviors, some instance of violence. I was actually walking with him when I saw the sticker, and then when I came to the training group actually with Rape Relief, and things started to click because I was hearing other women talk about their own experience, that was when I was like, okay, this is like gonna be it.
Our organization is a bit unique in that we work as a collective, so we don't have like an executive director or supervisors. As a collective, we each get 1 vote and we have an equal say in how we're gonna work for the year, and we share the organization's work. It happens that we reflect the community that we serve. So we have women from all different race and class backgrounds. There's a few other lesbians in the group. There's all of the women in the group also have our own experiences of male violence. When a woman calls our line, she's connected instantly to a crisis team of 2 women who kind of give her an immediate, or whoever, an immediate response. So we always see to the immediate safety of anyone who calls our crisis line. We have a pretty small transition house. It's technically 10 beds, but of course we have cribs and a pull-out couch if we need it.
When they request a shelter, it usually is pretty obvious. We invite women to come to live in our transition house if we have the space and it's her decision that she wants to leave him.
Women stay in our house to escape or prevent all forms of male violence against women, including rape, sexual assault, physical assault, prostitution, women trying to escape a pimp or a John. So when a woman first moves into our house, it can be, depending on like what happened and where she's at, it might mean that we have some like pretty urgent things to address, like if she needs medical care, for example, like if she's been strangled and lost consciousness, that can have really serious impacts on her brain. And so we talk about anything that's urgent, like medical care, first of all, safety, making sure that her location services are turned off on her phone. After that, yeah, women have a chance to settle in a little bit, meet the other women and the kids meet each other and get a little settled into the house. We show her what the kitchen looks like. We show her where the laundry room is, what her bedroom is. We're really intentional about following a woman's lead. And of course, like being in an abusive relationship, you don't have autonomy, you don't have a say, you don't have power and control over your own life, body, what's happening with your kids, what you're allowed to do.
Having her in our shelter means that she already has started her resistance, and oftentimes when women leave, there's so many barriers that she's facing.
When you're in something, it's really hard to actually like have an outside perspective, and you genuinely hope for the best, want the best, believe in the best of other people, and that's okay. But I think we can't ignore how much work it is to actually hear what's happening or see what's happening to yourself and be able to have concrete steps to take in order to exit that relationship.
I think there's this really common image of a man who rapes or batters, is that he's not like any other normal men. Yeah, there's the image of a stranger in the bush and he's attacking a woman. But yeah, most of the time it's a man that she knows.
I have noticed in my time at Rape Relief is like just how amazing women are in order to like get themselves safe, and how we're able to like support one another.
I think personally I feel free. Yeah, being able to see the reality and the truth for what it is. So yeah, in my personal life, I am so glad that I came to Rape Relief. When I share my own experience with friends or our callers or residents alike, I know that it really helps with the shame of, again, having been a victim of male violence.
My message to women who are experiencing male violence would be to not keep it to yourself. If you want to call us, we are happy to talk to you, but talk to a friend and don't keep it to yourself.
We've recalled the stories of victims and faced the staggering figures. The high rate of gender-based violence has been called by the BC government an epidemic. So what needs to be done, and how do we ensure women themselves, survivors, do not carry the weight of those solutions alone? Joining us now, Executive Director of the Battered Women's Support Services, Angela Marie McDougall. Thank you so much for being here, Angela.
Thank you. We
know that in 2024, around 20 women were killed to femicide,
right.
Double the average rate between 2010 and 2015.
That's right.
In 2022, Stephanie Forster was shot and killed by who investigators believed was her ex-husband
Right.
in Coquitlam. She had a protection order against him. What needs to be done to improve enforcement of these orders?
Yeah, that's such a good question. It was such a horrible circumstance of Stephanie being killed. Well, this is what we're trying to address with the RCMP and with municipal police as well, but also with the provincial government, is the enforcement. We really want those orders enforced. If a victim, a woman, takes the time to get a protection order, and in this case a family law protection order, which requires appearing in front of a judge, then we definitely want the police to enforce that order when the abusive partner breaches it. So what can we do? We keep compelling and keep appealing to the levels of government and police to follow through on what we expect them to do.
Okay. Let's look specifically at what the BC government is doing to address the crisis. In Budget 2025, we saw BC make new investments to keep people safe, but no new money to prevent violence against women. Right. What do you make of this?
That was sad. I mean, we were disappointed by that, certainly. We have right now a provincial action plan that does need to be resourced and deployed. So we keep appealing, of course, to all levels of government to take action. We need deeper investment in prevention and intervention and legal systems and broader systemic change. And so we keep asking for that, and it's necessary.
Okay. Now, we know transitional housing is a vital tool in helping victims flee gender-based violence. In March, nearly 230 transition housing spaces opened in BC. The federal and provincial governments also announced millions in rent support for survivors of gender-based violence. Are these investments a step in the right direction, or does the BC government need to go further?
So those are huge and important steps in a very good direction, most definitely. Yes, the expansion of transition housing and rent supplements make a huge difference, especially now in a housing crisis, where we can provide some options when women can't pay the rent. I mean, we don't want women forced to live with abusive partners because there's no affordable housing. So that's the note that we keep dinging, is more affordable housing.
Okay. Ending violence against women and girls still requires dismantling the systems of oppression that enables it. This is a phrase used in the BWSS mission statement. Tell me what this means.
This is about the roots of the problem, which is basically how we view women in society. We're still working for gender equity and equality, and so that's at the heart of this. In British common law, which is the law that formed Canadian law, women were considered property of their fathers and then their husbands. husbands. And some of those beliefs are still embedded in our legal and social systems, and this is what we want to disrupt, certainly.
Okay. Tell us about the Battered Women's Support Services and how the organization helps women.
Well, the organization started with 5 incredible women way back in 1979 with the intention of ending violence against women, but also providing support services and then education and working for systemic change. So that's in a short form is what we do. We work to end violence. We provide services responding to over 52,000 requests in 2024 and working for larger and broader systemic change, which is getting at the roots of the problem and eliminating violence against women. We believe it's possible, and we're going to keep doing that work.
Okay, Angela, thank you so much for being here. That was Angela Marie McDougall with the Battered Women's Support Services. Femicide is an epidemic that impacts women, but those impacts ripple, leaving British Columbians and Canadians without a mother, sister, daughter, wife, and friend. As we've seen and heard across this City News special, the ways out of violent relationships aren't so simple, but as local organizations have shown, there are resources out there to help. As advocates have pointed out, an all-hands-on-deck approach is needed to ensure no more lives are taken. An approach that must come not only from all levels of government, but also society to change the circumstances that enable these tragedies. If you or someone you know needs help, know that help is available by calling 1-855-687-1868. I'm Kate Walker. Thank you for joining us on City Connect.